All right, let's get started. So this webinar will is part of the 2025 to 26 Idaho AI Catalyst Initiative, which was funded and organized by Heidi Estrom, the Chief Academic Officer at the Idaho Office of the State Board of Education. Our North Star is to empower faculty as we all navigate AI readiness. And our presenters today are myself, Joel Glad, Kevin Rank, and Liza Long. Liza is a guest, special guest for today. Is not one of the catalysts, but is at the state board as the academic technology program manager. So thank you. This is our agenda. So I'm going to cover kind of an overview of like what are AI agents or what is agentic AI, how's it compared to chatbots, that kind of stuff. Kevin's going to walk us through his use of an agentic browser, focusing on Perplexity. Liza's going to demonstrate how she's using Claude, the Claude Code, or I guess it would be the Claude extension for Chrome to help with accessibility. And then I'm going to show how I use Claude Code and Codex to also help with accessibility, but just it's kind of a crash course in agentic CLIs. So yeah, lot to cover. Here's some links from the previous webinars. What agentic AI means for teaching and assessment would be covered in webinars 2 and 3. It just adds like another technical component, but really just, those pedagogical, I guess, implications would be covered in those webinars. Still applies. All right, so let's dive in. So what is an agent? This is, there's a lot of different definitions floating around. Microsoft Copilot confusingly refers to its custom chatbots as agents, for example. Just a normal chatbot, they call them agents. In this presentation, we're going to be a little bit more precise by relying on Anthropic's definition. I mean, I like their definition for this purpose because it is more precise, but it's also flexible enough to account for the variety of agents. Quote, agents are systems where LLMs dynamically direct their own processes and tool usage, maintaining control over how they accomplish tasks. That is from Anthropic's Building Effective Agents. I think it was published in 2025. So this slide shows the difference between like normal, I guess pre-2024-ish LLM chatbot interactions, and then what we started seeing, especially take off last year, and then as really picking up steam. We can call the LLM chatbot interaction, the non-agentic interaction, as more reactive. So the chatbot waits for your specific instruction. This would be your prompt, processes it, and then gives a response, and then it stops there. If you have, we have inputs, we have outputs. If you have a complex task, you must act as the router, prompting it step by step. So, for example, like you tell, ChatGPT, hey, write some code that can do this, right? Then you would say, okay, it gives you the code. Then you say, now write a test for it, and then you'd have to plug in that test somewhere and test it. And then you would say, hey, now explain how to run it, and then you'd have to go somewhere and run it. AI agent framework would be more autonomous. The agent receives a high-level goal and independently determines the steps to achieve it. You can lay out those steps, but usually now it just kind of says, okay, this is the goal, here's the information I need, and then it just plans it out. This is what I'm going to do step by step. It acts as its own router, looping through actions until the goal is met. So for example, you can tell Codex, like create and test a login page. The agent would write the code, try to run it, look for errors or bugs, fix the code, and then run it again, and then finally report success. Technical documentation defines agentic AI through a 5-stage cognitive architecture. I think it's just, I realize this is somewhat high level, but I think it's helpful to understand just what's going on in the back end. So this is known as the agentic loop. So for example, if I say fill out this form using details from my Gmail and a file on my drive, you can do that with Perplexity Comet would be an agent browser that could do that, and now Gemini has the agentic Gemini assistant built into it. And as it goes through the loop, I mean, here's what would happen if you asked it to fill out this form using these parts of Google Workspace. So Gemini would collect three kinds of what's called a state. It would identify the user goal, so fill out this form, like that's the goal, right? And then it would look for workspace context. So Gemini can connect to Google Apps like Gmail and Drive when you explicitly invoke them in the prompts. Can you see the sidebar when I toggle it?
Yeah.
I'll see that toggle. Yeah, okay. So that would be, this is where you can complete these actions, right? It would know to look for Drive. It would also access the browser or user interface state. So this would be the current form page as an interactive UI that Gemini can operate with computer use. And then it sees the form fields, all that stuff, right? And then it's going to go to the reasoning part of the loop, right? So it's going to decide like which Gmail messages contain the right values, which Drive file is the source of truth, for other values, how to map the source data, what's missing or ambiguous, whether to ask you for more information. And this would be like the interpret, select, and maps step as part of this loop. And then it's gonna do the planning stage. So you'll see this when you toggle the pane, you'll say like Gemini, do this. It's gonna enter, you can click task and then it's gonna set up a workflow, right? So it'll set up a entire schedule for itself, like open the form page, pull from Gmail, pull from Drive, populate the form fields in sensible order, validate, and then ask for confirmation. So that would just be the plan, and then it actually does the action, right? So it executes actions through Surface tools. For Gemini, that would be like workspace connected apps, search, read Gmail, open, read Drive, read a Drive file, all that stuff. And also the computer use actions within the browser. So click on fields, type values, drop down options, check boxes. And then when it completes the action, it's going to evaluate. So Gemini would check, did the form accept the input? Did any required field remain blank? Did a page transition happen? Things like that. Something fails, like a login prompt or there's missing information, it revises, rereads the sources, searches for a different email or file, retries input, so on and so forth. So much more autonomous than we were used to before 2025. Google's Chrome browser assistant, I kind of showed what that looked like when I toggled it. Gemini uses the agentic loop to actively interact with your browser tabs. So it can click on buttons, complete forms, navigate websites, and execute many other tasks, multi-step tasks. This screenshot on this slide shows what happened when I asked Gemini to add an image to the slide. It shows the task started. It clicked on the insert menu. It typed a description of what it thought would be appropriate. I didn't tell it, to do any of these things. And then it selected an image. I think it was the upper left image that it selected. And so I rejected it. And I was like, yeah, this is kind of tasteless. I don't want this. But it could complete the steps. And so the key shift from the sidebar systems we began seeing in 2023, I think like Copilot in the Edge browser was the first to do this. The shift from that to 2025 to 26 was a combination of visual processing and tool use by the models. Previously sidebars relied on the developer debugger pane. So if you go like, here, more tools, developer, it relied on this kind of stuff to figure out like what's going on in a web page. It would use that to read the browser tab. That's how it would summarize documents and kind of analyze things for you. So Gemini's multimodal capabilities now allow it to analyze pixels, not just HTML code. So what's interesting about its task completion, and think about pixels here, like it's like viewing the browser tab. It relies pretty heavily on screenshots at this stage. So Comment, Gemini, and Claude extension all continuously take screenshots to understand the environment and what the fields need to complete it or buttons that need to be clicked. It depends on the task, but many times it's taking like these very quick screenshots. It can be tedious. This is why it takes a little bit while for some tasks, and it relies on heavy token usage because the model has to parse the visual data for each step. It's using the multimodal capability that's built into all the models now. I think that this might be shifting. So just today, like I learned that Google is rolling out a beta feature in Chrome that provides agents with more direct access to website features. So we may see non-screenshot approaches. I'm not quite sure about that. What I would imagine is that, eventually within a year, much of the internet's going to be really just kind of rebuilt, or features going to roll out to where it's really for agents, right? And you may not need to rely on the screenshot approach. All right, so what does this mean for academic integrity? So a student can tell an agent, like, it's if the student is logged into Canvas, I can say something like, hey, go look for missing assignments in this course and complete them. The agent will log into Canvas, identify overdue or upcoming assignments, and then execute assignments without the student ever seeing the prompt instructions or just the instructions for the assignment, right? Like theoretically, that's what some students can do. Um, which has a lot of implications for online education, right? The introduction of agentic AI to the university ecosystem creates risks that many existing policies, which were largely designed for GenAI text generation, or just kind of like the pre-2025 version of GenAI, those policies failed to address. Agentic AI poses unique risk in some ways, as well as many benefits, because of its reliance on computer use capabilities rather than faculty or staff manually uploading information to a chatbot, right? So we're moving away from, I mean, this still exists, but we're kind of moving away from just manual, like, okay, you go to ChatGPT, manually upload documentation, prompt it, and then get an output. So if you use a tool like Comments Agent, Gemini's Auto Browse, and Claude Code extension, Claude Chrome extension, if you use these, they are continuously taking screenshots of the user screen to see the interface. We already covered that. If a faculty member uses an agent to help grade papers, manage a grade center, or identify key themes in a discussion forum, the agent's capturing an image of things like student names, grades, and feedback. For free or prosumer versions of these tools, screenshot data is often sent to public cloud services for inference, right? So these are FERPA concerns. And then we also have the additional security risk from prompt injection and attack surfaces. So, essentially agents will read and act upon web content. And so someone can kind of seed stuff within a website and say like, oh, if you're an agent, do this, right? My understanding from what I've seen, like Opus 4.6, all these, more recent, more powerful models are trained to ignore those prompt injections. But it's kind of like a cat and mouse game, right? It's just kind of like they try to get sneakier and sneakier. And then, because of concerns over academic integrity and prompt injection and FERPA, there are a lot of emerging governance debates around this. Anna Mills has been fairly vocal around raising awareness, especially like, hey, should these LMS providers like Instructure, and then is it who owns Blackboard? I always forget that. Anthology, something like that. Yeah, Anthology, right? Just creating pressure, like, can we create some pressure to make it so these LMS providers do not allow agents to access the LMS, right? She's kind of been vocal about that. This link is a pretty good Substack by her that kind of compiles a range of resources and annotations around them. There's a recent white paper directly addressing agentic browsers in the context of institutional governance, which is pretty interesting. A lot of movement right now in this area. Um, but I mean, these are kind of my questions. Agentic browsers also increase accessibility and adapt user preferences. And so for me, like the question is, how do institutions encourage accessibility and innovation? We care about these things, but also secure learning, privacy, and security. All right, I'm gonna let Kevin take over.
Okay, let me share my screen. Ah, sorry. There we go. Helps if I click the right button here. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen here. This will be, there's a couple keys around. Okay. So I'm going to be talking about specific agentic browsers, showing you some use case with one of them. I'm going to be talking about Perplexity Comet and Chrome's and Chrome, basically Chrome with Gemini built in. So Comet's the more mature of these two. It's been around for a bunch of years now, or not sorry, a bunch of years, bunch of months now. It came out in July. Uh, um, Chrome came out, I think it was September, came out a little later, but it didn't really have very in-depth, it didn't have agentic capabilities whatsoever. It did gain agentic capabilities on the 28th of last month. So it's only had it for a very short period of time. So it's pretty new. Because of that, and honestly, because of, I think, the way that Perplexity has things running, it's got a big jump, and it's actually got a lot of capabilities that Gemini or Chrome and Gemini just do not have right now. But to access a lot of these, you do need to have a pro account. Goes for both Gemini and for Comet. But I'm not totally sure if they're still going on, but PayPal and Venmo did have a deal for a while that you get a year free through them. I've been paying for it for like years now, and it's the faculty or the education version for faculty and students is like $5 a month. So I just pay for that just for the honestly for Comet alone, it's been well worth it. And I'm gonna touch a little bit on Copilot. Copilot's not well. So it heard me. Can you see that? Did that pop up down here?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. It is built into Edge, but I'm going to be talking about the overall version, the one that's built into Windows. I'm just going to touch on that. There are a couple of links. I don't actually have them. I can't get to them. There are some links. I've got a document that has a lot of this information. I also created a notebook. So, I like to use notebooks for all sorts of stuff. And these links will be available. Actually, as soon as I'm done here, I'll share those. So I'm going to start off with shortcuts. Honestly, I find that using shortcuts makes life a lot easier. There's universal ones, and I'm hoping you guys are familiar with the universal ones. But search tabs is fairly new. If you hit Control Shift A, it'll pop it up. So I'm using this through Comet. This is the Comet version. I can search through tabs. It's actually pretty nice. I prefer Comet's version to Chrome's. I think it's got a little bit more functionality. And then this is the Comet and Chrome shortcuts themselves. Comet you see has 3 of them. I can go into voice mode and just talk to it instead of having to type stuff. I can also just hit A to open up the assistant there, close it. And I can also hit Alt S and it will open up the assistant and summarize it. So that's a pretty convenient one too. On Chrome, I can just open Gemini. It doesn't really have any extra capabilities as of yet. So we talk about Comet. Why would you use it? This is my default search, or this is my default daily browser now. It uses Perplexity for its web search. And I do prefer Perplexity as my go-to web search, like research web search functionality. I have discovered that Google is better at, they've tuned it over years to make it better at certain things. If I just want to look up a website, Google's the way to go. If I want to look, if I put it in Word, I'm not totally sure how to spell it, Google's the one that I go to. And you can change your default search engine, which is nice. But what I do, it's also got default functionality where if you just hold down Control and press Enter, it will kick off the search engine into Google instead of using Perplexity. That's the way I use it probably the most. That's the way that I think it works the best. With Comet, in doing some research, these were the things that came up the most. A lot of people would use it to summarize and compare multiple sources instantly. The ability to bring in multiple tabs at once is kind of one of the superpowers of these agentic browsers. That way, you've got a lot more context to work with than just what is right there. You can use the AI and let it do web navigation and forms, unless, you know, for me, I really do not like filling out forms. It brings me like no joy. So being able to turn stuff that's very boring over to the AI is really nice. They are, as Joel was saying a little bit ago, they are kind of slow. So it's not something that I just turn over and do. Google actually has a really good form filler capability built in. Not the best, but it does a really good job. Uh, when we were testing this out, and I'll get into it with Chrome, but when we were testing this out on Chrome, my colleague Dan Rush figured out or found out that it would not do drop downs. Chrome would not do drop downs well, where Comet will. Uh, let's see. So a lot of people will turn it over their inboxes to it. I'm still a little hesitant to do that. Shop Smarter. This is one that's used a lot. You can find deals. One of my use cases a lot is I'll get to a checkout and ask it to test out coupon codes. It will go out, find coupon codes, test them out, and find the best one for me if there is one. And then smart organization. You can group tabs. You can actually using that tab search, you can go through and have it find tabs that you're not using more and close them, stuff like that. It's really nice. That is one that I actually like quite a bit. Comet also has templates. So I'm just going to open this up here. You can see here that when I open up a new tab, it brings up Perplexity. This is my default search or my default page. And these are the templates. If I click these, it'll do these actions. And that's what I'm talking about these templates. I'm going to show a summary framework here. But you can create, and this is one I created. It'll pull up a framework out of something. Let me find here. Sorry. I have a bunch of tabs open, as you can see, so I need to find the right one, and that is not it. There we go. This is the one I want. Okay. So this is a gentleman I like. I enjoy his YouTube videos. And one of the things I can do is I can open up the assistant, Alt A, do a slash, and I name all these sum for summaries. And if I want to pull a framework out of what he's doing, I just do that and press enter, and it will run this through, and it will basically does this. It'll pull 3 takeaways, explain them like I'm in 8th grade, basically making them accessible, and give me any frameworks I can take away. And then also that I ask it to give me ways that I can use this in my job. Let's see here. So the framework's really the one that I'm looking for the most, and it shows me how to use this. So are these like Google Gems? They're much more simplistic than Google Gems. And a problem that I have with the Chrome extension or the Chrome agentic browser is that you cannot actually use Google Gems in there yet. I would guess they're going to add that functionality soon. These templates are literally just a prompt. So they're not as robust as what I would say an actual gem is, or like a custom GPT. So it is literally just, oops. So it's literally, this is what I'm pulling up, that /sum framework. And that is the prompt that it runs. All it is a shortcut to a prompt is really what it is. Okay. Actually, you know what? And so what I wanted to show you was a use case now. And this is where some of these use cases are very powerful. Again, let's see here. Oh, that's in the way. Okay, so I want this again. So in ChatGPT, I have a ton of custom GPTs down the side, you can see, and projects. So I'm going to pop this out. And actually, so this is the sheet I'm going to share you. And let's see here. I'm going to copy that. And because this is not one I do a lot, but it is one that I've used before. So this is where it's looking at my browser so that it's able to use it. So this is going to be real time. You'll see that it's a little on the slow side, but it's reading the page. You can see that it's showing collecting all custom GPT names and URLs. It's basically pulling information up. And what it's going to do, it's going to create a table from those. And I'm going to click away for a second. And let's see, that's not the one I want. Sorry, again, lots of tabs. I need to find the right one here. Okay, so this is what I ultimately use this for. What it's going to do over here is it's going to pull all that information in and it's going to output it as a table. That's what I was asking it to do right here, to use those as the table headers. And that's basically what I did here. It gives me the name, gives me the URL, what platform it's on, because I do use Gemini, I do use Claude, and what the type is. So with Gemini, there are Opal workflows. They're a little different if you do those. With ChatGPT, we've got custom GPTs and projects. So that's the reason why I have the type. I do have work and I have personal accounts that I use. So I'm bringing all that together. And I've actually added a few since I built this. But as of about a month ago, I had almost 150. So I've got over 150 of these too. Um, yeah, so yeah, I always have a bunch of these, but that's honestly one of the really nice things about being able to search my tabs too. I can jump through all of them. So learning that capability has really made life easier as well. Okay, so let's go back to this. So it still's running, and this is one of the reasons why I actually created or pulled in what it had already done. So it still's working. You can see there, it's now clicking around. So it's actually doing actions in the browser itself for me. Again, it's very good at this. And I can actually go in here. I can upload or I can add items from Google Drive or Dropbox because I have them connected. I can also upload files or images. And then again, using slash commands, I'm not going to do anything because it's doing stuff, but using slash commands, I can get other functionality. This model console, you can actually run multiple models at once, but you have to be on an ultra plan, which I am not. So I can't actually use that. And you can't force it to control the browser. This is another functionality that Google Chrome does not have, is the ability to actually force that to work. Another use case here. So this is one that I did in getting ready for this. I was trying something out. I actually tried both Comet and Gemini. I brought up a job in LinkedIn, and then I brought up my profile. And so there are two different tabs. I brought the tabs, or I ran the item through those two tabs, and I had it rate how I rated how I did it against that job, and if it would be a good fit. And this shows you what the criteria was, what the assessment was. And I also put over here the difference in the scores. I did find that Gemini tended to think I'm better than what I really am. So this is still going, but you can see how this works. I don't think I'll have enough time to finish this up. So I'm going to continue on with the presentation. So let me jump back here. That's the right one. That's the one I want. Okay. So why Chrome? Like, I do like Comet. It is my go-to, but I use Chrome quite a bit. Again, it has the it's got the auto browsing tasks. It's got cross-tab intelligence. They all do. It's got the seamless Google ecosystem. So it just connects to everything, which is really nice. Instant on-page summarization, they pretty much all do that. And I do want to bring this up. So I can say, hey, Copilot. Okay, came up earlier. Copilot. Hey, Copilot. There we go. Now I can actually click this and I can share my screen with it. Hey, what's on my screen? All right. I can see the. All right. So I don't know why on my work machine, I'm going to stop it there. I do not know why, but on my work machine, it really stutters really bad. But you can literally share your screen with it. That's what I was trying to show. So you can ask it questions on anything on your screen. So if you're having issues with different apps, it'll help you with that. Where Comet and Chrome just work on web pages. So that's a little different with those two things. Yeah, as I said here, it's a good accessibility tool. Um, in some testing we did this last weekend, we did find that we did find the screenshot. I don't. We did find that in Claude, we could get it to do some assignments for us automatically, but I could not get it to work in Comet. And I was trying to do a simulation on Excel. It was not actually using Excel, but uh, for this presentation, it was McGraw Hill SimNet. And it wanted you to type in numbers, and Comet could not actually type in numbers. It tried, but it failed every time. With Claude, it actually typed it in properly and was able to accomplish the test that we were trying to do. So that is something to keep in mind. I have found running Lockdown Browser, it basically will go through and remove all of and here, this is what it did here. It did force me to unload all of the different tools like ChatGPT and stuff too. So that is the end of my part. I'll go through the chat really quick, see if I missed anything, and I will turn it over to Liza.
Thanks, Kevin. Wow. I always feel like I learned so much from you. And sorry for the crazy new background, you guys. I've had ChatGPT like create a new background for me today. I'm not loving it, but that's kind of fun. Let me share my screen. So thank you so much, first of all, for the invitation to join you all. And I love that Joel kicked us off with accessibility. That's kind of where my head has been in terms of academic technology right now, because we have that April 24th deadline with Title II compliance. So I have been playing with Claude for a while now to try to see if it can do my work for me. That's basically what I like to do now, is come to work and say, oh, hey, I'm not on Mac OS. I want to do Claude Code. Apparently, I need a Mac now. Okay, I'll deal with that later. I was asking it today about if CoWork could help with the PDF accessibility tagging issues. So just wanted to show you my process really quickly. And I'm also going to blog about this, like for real. I'll get it up and I have a little video that walks you through what I did. But I do a lot of my work like this in Claude projects. This is the paid version, so you have to pay. And I am not paying enough because I max out my tokens routinely on this particular project. So I'm saying both of those things right now. And yes, I'm super tempted to pay $200 a month or whatever it is they're charging just to kind of jam through this accessibility stuff. I've also created just a Pressbooks on this that I can share in the chat. So this Pressbooks just kind of has my workflow, the stuff that I'm showing you, if like these prompts, what you can do with these prompts. And then the VPAT accessibility evaluation, which I've really, really liked that prompt. So that's been great. You don't have to have the agentic browser to do the VPAT evaluation, but it's really, really great just to have that and see where you're at. So anyway, you'll get all those fun prompts. Joel already mentioned this, but I like to start any conversation about agentic browsers like the one I'm about to show you with this. You're basically telling it can do stuff. I heard this great talk. In fact, I think I have it for you guys. I'm finally catching up on Davos, and Noah Yuval Harari, who's one of my favorite thinkers in general, gave a fascinating and somewhat sobering talk about AI and where we are now, but he also gave an analogy that I really liked for agentic browsers and AI in general. And he said, these are not tools, they're technologies. So a knife is a tool. And with a knife, I can choose to cut lettuce or I can choose to commit murder, right? But I'm the one wielding the knife. He said, AI is a knife that can decide for itself whether to chop lettuce or commit murder. And I liked that analogy because I think it really helps us to, like, the word agent, that sounds fancy. That's what we mean. Like once you turn this thing on, it can work without you. And Claude does have guardrails built in. I did do some checking on all of this stuff before I started playing around with it. But basically just always be the human in the loop, consider sandboxing. I'm actually on my work computer because I feel safe about this particular workflow, but I hardly ever use an agent. Well, never, except for today, use an agentic browser on my work computer. I have a special computer that's dedicated for this work, just in case, right? So think smart, think FERPA compliant, all of that stuff, really, really important. Okay, but while you're really here, you want to see what it does. So when I do this accessibility, and I've been running this morning, I'm about to run out of tokens, so that'll be good for y'all to see. But basically you can see like, what I do is I just open the Claude browser extension just there. So I'm in a website here, I'll show you on this one. So I'm in a website and I'll just click on the Claude browser, and then just like Kevin was kind of showing you, I get this little, hey, what do you want to do? Now, if you're brand new at this stuff, make it check in with you every step of the way. At this point, I've been playing with it for a while. I feel pretty good. Well, I feel really good about this workflow. So I'm like, yeah, have at it, Claude. You have a very narrow scope. I have told you what to do. Have some fun. I'll close out of that one, and we'll go back to the one that's active. So basically, I opened this browser and I told Claude, go in there and do it. And what it's doing in this particular part of the workflow is it's checking for heading styles within the HTML code of my Pressbooks. So this is Cyborgs and Centaurs. I sometimes get my heading styles wrong. That's a really common accessibility issue. It's a pretty easy fix. It takes so much time, and Claude can just go in there and do it for me. And I've already done it on a few books. It's great. It works really, really great. Before I ever mess with any of these books, I do an export of the current textbook. I do a Pressbooks XML export just in case, right? Like maybe it'll change some stuff up. Early on, it was going in and changing content, and that was frustrating to me. So I really tightened up this workflow to limit its scope, but it's working great. So let's go ahead and tell it, and you'll get to see it hit its token limits. But let's say option A. So it's giving me options. It's basically telling me right here, hey, you are going to run out of tokens. But we'll let it do it so you can kind of see what it does. It's definitely finding and fixing issues. How do I know it's finding and fixing issues? Well, I look at the editorial checker that Pressbooks has built in, and it's amazing. My world mythology book, after following this workflow, it starts with headings, then it moves to alt text, where Claude actually goes in and adds alt text to all of the images if they don't have them. Then I have a tassel, a title, author, source, and license workflow for it. So it goes in and cleans up all of my image attributions and Creative Commons. It's just each step is a different part of the workflow. So you can kind of see what it's doing, right? It's in code view. I make it do all this stuff in code. I just get much better, tighter results when it's in the HTML instead of trying to use the visual editor. And like Kevin already showed you and Joel, it's just taking screenshots as it goes. So you can see it's kind of telling me what it's up to. But yeah, perfect. Yes, it is perfect. So it's doing all this. I'm not touching it. Right? This would take me a really long time to go in and do it myself. The alt text too has just been a fantastic game changer for me, and it does a good job with alt text. So, oh, and the other thing it's really good at is the third one that's in that book that I shared is descriptive links. So it'll go through and find all of your links that are not descriptive. It will write descriptive text for them, and it will correct that in your book. So I went from plenty of little minor ticky-tacky errors like that to perfect blue check marks in my accessibility reports with editorially, which felt really, really good. That's all I really wanted to show you. I guess if you have questions, I'll check the chat, but I thought this might be fun for you. And then, as you're thinking about how you might use a browser like this, think about a task that you have where Claude might be able to go out and do some of your grunt work. One of the first tasks that I tried with this tool was having Claude check all of our public-facing catalogs for all of our institutions to locate courses that might fit the definition of remedial course. So it was great at that. I asked it to output a spreadsheet. It did. I could cross-check that stuff. Again, work I could do myself, but very tedious. It would take time. And much better. So now we can see that it's all been fixed. Gonna keep going. All right, I'll stop sharing my screen, Joel, and turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Liza. I love that because I'm like in the midst of updating many Pressbooks right now. Many Pressbooks. All right. So this is going to build on both Liza and Kevin. And I'm gonna just so we talked about agentic AI, what that means. We looked at agentic browsers. Liza showed the Claude Chrome extension that's really powerful. The last thing we want to cover is like agentic CLIs, command line interfaces, and skills. Skills can be used in Claude desktop or Claude online, but also within the CLI within your terminal. And they're really powerful. They're essentially like, well, we'll get there. This is kind of like my favorite workflow right now, and I was really excited to share this. But I realize the terminal's not exciting for everyone, so won't be too long. Um, the most profound shift that we've seen, really things really started taking off. I think in September around then. But we saw a big shift in the rise of agentic command line interfaces, CLIs. So Claude Code, OpenAI Codex, and Google Gemini are all CLIs. And we can see like a traditional command line interface is a text-based environment where developers interact with the operating system using precise type commands. Like you have to know your commands and scripting and all this stuff to make your way around a terminal. I guess Liza and I were talking about this, like kind of takes some of us back to like the DOS, like just booting your computer, doing your little commands in DOS. And we forgot how to do this. And then like, Claude Code and Codex started taking off. And it's like, wait, I remember like, using a terminal back in the day. Basically it's the engine room of computing, right? So when you get into your terminal, you can do many different things that are hard to do elsewhere in your computer. You're not clicking icons, you're just like, boom, issuing commands. Um, Agentic CLIs transform the empty terminal into an autonomous workspace. So instead of typing manual commands and having to know what they are, the AI agent, so it'd be Claude Code, it'd be Codex, lives in the terminal and possesses the agency to do things like read files, edit code, write and execute programs on its own, access browsers. So if you use Claude Code, it actually uses the Claude Chrome extension to interact between the browser interface and then your file system. And then utilize tools and APIs for complex workflows. This is really like the big like payoff here is by working the terminal, and then now these different companies like Claude has their desktop app. You can access Claude Code within the desktop app now, and then the Codex or OpenAI has their Codex app. It's kind of similar, more user friendly than going to the terminal. But here you can start to bring in more powerful tools, APIs. We'll look at an API that you can use pretty easily, and really stack a lot of things. So it's very simple to install and set up Codex, and it's like shockingly simple. So Codex is OpenAI's agentic coding tool that runs in your terminal. I'm going to focus on Codex. I know I love Claude Code. It's close to my heart, but I'm going to focus on Codex because most Idaho institutions have at least some enterprise access to ChatGPT. I know for a fact that CBY, BSU, and others have at least a certain bundle of OpenAI accounts that faculty and staff have access to, and you can use your account in Codex. You can it'll ask for authentication. You just log in with your enterprise account. Claude is mostly like personal accounts, so I'm not going to focus on that as much in this demonstration. But the setup for Claude is very similar. Just you just Google it, how to set it up. Very simple. So like on I'll share my whole computer now. I would just go to like terminal. This is what we're talking about here. And once it's set up, let me get rid of this. Terminal. And I'm just going to type in Codex. I'm in, right? Yeah. So that's a terminal. It should be on your PC and Mac. Something like Ryan might use Linux. I don't know. And then if you want to use your enterprise account, you would authenticate. It's going to ask you to authenticate, and then you just plug in your credentials, right? All right. After installing with a simple command, it's going to ask you to sign in. I mentioned that. You can start giving it natural language instructions like a chatbot. It'll read files, write code, and it's going to run commands. Okay, so this slide, I'm really trying to be responsible with the introduction to Codex here, because I think it's important, for the Catalyst to be emphasize the safety and security stuff. I'm not going to read this. This is for reference later. But basically, if you're using a personal version of ChatGPT Plus or Pro, you need to be aware of your institution's data security policies when interacting with your college's data, as well as comply with FERPA. So I'm going to look at how to interact with your Canvas courses entirely through Codex. You can also do it through Claude Code. And if you're using a personal account, you need to make sure you're not providing with access to student data. Finally, so Kevin showed like, hey, you can pull all these, he was asking Perplexity to find his gems and, ChatGPT, what are they called? Not projects, but GPTs, all that stuff, right? In one place. The cool thing about agentic CLIs, when you get into the terminal, you can essentially create all of that as skills, right? So I have many different repeating workflows. Formerly, I would create a GPT or a gem or a project. Now, it's just a skill that lives in my that lives in a file, and I know like I can just use natural language, say something like, "Hey, use this Canvas skill to pull all my modules in from this course," right? And it's going to know exactly how to do that. I'll have another skill for accessibility. I'll have another skill for various things. Um, and so this slide kind of explains what skills are. So many of you have custom chatbots or projects. Those are essentially skills, right? They're basically custom chatbots at the terminal level, but much more powerful. They can be more powerful because a single skill can tell the agent to read certain files, run commands, call APIs, um, uh, and follow highly detailed instructions step by step, all triggered by simply saying like, hey, use the Canvas skill or use that skill, right? So I'm going to demonstrate. So I linked to this. I'm going to share my screen again. This is a GitHub that recently published. It's kind of a crash course in like agentic CLIs, but for Canvas, basically, it's kind of framed for it's. I made the README like just the description to like try to be accessible. If you have never gone into a terminal, you can use this as kind of a starting point, and it's focused on like accessibility and productivity. If you want to like interact with your Canvas courses within your terminal to like do things like ADA remediation, right? So what this says is like, if you get set up in your terminal, then all you need to do to install this skill, you can create it from scratch, but I wanted to make this simple. I'm going to open, I have a folder dedicated to Canvas courses. And I'm going to open my terminal there, go to Codex, and then I can just copy and paste this prompt here, right? So what I'm telling, see, if I try to zoom in. So I'm telling it like, hey, I'm new, I'm logged into Codex, I'm new to terminal workflows, I don't know how to do this stuff, install and set up this Canvas skill from, and then it's pointing to my GitHub, handle any skill path details for me automatically. They walk me through first time setup step by step. So this is kind of the rad thing with terminals. You can just tell it to do things. Go to this, like, I don't know how to use GitHub. I don't know how to run this program. Go to this website, download it for me, make it work, right? And then if you run into problems, just ask it, or it's going to ask you for next steps, right? All right. The other thing to run the skill, so basically, I'll show you what happens when I run it. When you install the skill, I'll say pull all of my modules. What is the, I'll just do this. I'm telling it to use the skill that I just showed from GitHub to pull all modules in sandbox 162. I'm using the sandbox here because I don't want to pull from a live course. I could do that. I certainly don't want to push any changes to a live course, but I'm just gonna do a pull, right? And receive information from like what lives in the course. Evaluate modules 1 through 3 for accessibility, ADA compliance, including updates to WCAG 2.1, give me a module by module update plan with recommended edits, so on and so forth, right? I mean, you could tell it to do a lot of things at once, or I could just do step by step, but I'll start there. And what it's going to do is what it's doing is using the Canvas API to access that sandbox that I told it to access. And it's going to pull my entire course to this folder here, right? So it found the course, it's pulling the modules. I can tell it to, bring everything in like the rubrics. It's there's many different things you can do with the API. Might add for like, it might ask for additional permissions. But let me go back to this slide quickly while it's doing that. As part of this, you need a Canvas API token. So that's one of the things that I mentioned that's powerful about working in the terminal is that you can use things like APIs. May not know this, but Canvas has an API. So you just go to settings. I show a screenshot of what that looks like when you generate a token. You go to your Canvas homepage, go to your settings, not your course settings, just your regular settings, and then you look for get token, and then you create a new token for this purpose, give it whatever name you want, save that token. That's what you're using to plug into Codex when it asks you to. It's going to ask for the token to complete the skill. You only have to do that once when you set up the skill. After that, it'll have access to your Canvas courses, wherever you're teaching a course, your sign as teacher permissions. That's what it has access to, right? Let's check in. It looks like it's running into a DNS thing. We'll check back in. So once it's installed, you can do, let's share again. You can do things like full pages, assignments, discussions, rubrics, and student submissions. Again, this is like going back to FERPA. If you want to review like a discussion forum for themes, you'd want to be using your enterprise access to do something like that, not a personal account. Um, uh, you can edit content locally, push changes back to Canvas. You would not want to push changes to a live course. But if you're prepping a course or if you're working in a sandbox, these are things you can do. Create, revise, and attach rubrics, just like the entire course. You can, say, hey, focus on the discussion forum or develop a rubric for these discussion forums. Help me revise that and have it push those changes. It's kind of limitless in what you can do. All right, so looks like it's still working on making that full. All right. Well, I'll come back to it at the end. Other coding skills and tools for accessibility. So I published a few different like GitHubs to help with this. There is a Pressbooks one, which would be similar in some ways to what Liza showed, but it's going to use the terminal here. And so if you install this command, then what you can do is I can say, I'm going to use Claude now. And I'm going to plug in this prompt. So I'm telling it to pull a chapter from my Pressbook and evaluate for ADA accessibility, provide a checklist of items for me to review, push the changes when I approve, right? So I'm going to plug that in. And similar to Canvas, it's actually using the Pressbooks API. It just it helps me create a script around this, and then so it's using the Pressbooks API. Just how to give it, I had to create a specific password for Claude and plug that in, and that allows it to retrieve my entire OER, my entire Pressbook instance. And then I can ask questions like, hey, pull these chapters or evaluate these chapters. And then just on the back end, it's accessing the HTML like Liza showed. It can apply the edits and then push the changes. All right, so it's fetching this specific chapter. And then that's going to show up in this folder. You can see it's using the Pressbooks API there. I just gave it a link to the chapter, and it figured out how to find that specific chapter. And then this is the HTML version that it's bringing in locally. And then it's going to read and then evaluate for accessibility, right? It's going to do the accessibility audit. I can be more specific, like Liza has really good prompts. I could pull Liza's prompts and apply that to the terminal. Say like, hey, use this to evaluate this chapter. Yeah, and so the difference, like, I mean, you can see with these different agentic strategies, you can choose things like, all right, I want to operate in the extension. I want to take, I want to kind of view things as it's working, or you can use the terminal and use the API to push changes on the back end, right? So it really depends on like, what you find more accessible, which you want to view. Do you want to see things in real time, or do you want to let the agent just kind of do things on the back end? All right, it says listing here, pull the chapter. It's listing like summary of required fixes. I can say, once you approve, I'll make the edits. Go ahead. It would make the changes and I would just say push. All right, I'm going to stop there and I'll wait for time. All right. I've not been monitoring the chat. All right. So as we go, any questions? I'll stick around for questions. Otherwise, we do have this survey. I'm going to drop in the chat here for this session, just to get your feedback on things that you liked, things that you would like to see in future sessions. And then just as a reminder, we have these resources for remaining connected. In our Idaho AI communities, we have the Alliance group, the Google group that we send out announcements through, our AI and OER drop-ins, our Opal AI drop-ins that Liza hosts on Mondays. And then we have AI events for Idaho educators, and then Substacks. If any of you are Substackers, if you have a newsletter you would like to include in this area, reach out and we'll list that. But otherwise, thanks for your time. I'll stick around for questions. Liza and Kevin, thank you for presenting. That was awesome.
Hey, thanks for having us. That was super cool, Joel. I love seeing the GitHub stuff.
Thank you.
And Kevin, your stuff always amazes me. I know we talked about that, but it was so fun to see it.
I saw a thing the other day. They were talking about with AI, your best bet is to just play with it, because it's kind of in that phase that you can get a lot of wins, and playing with it's just enjoyable, and you also learn it.
Yeah, I just got to play around. I'm trying to figure out what error it was running into with the Canvas course thing. I'm gonna stop recording.
Were you